Alright, hey everybody, this is Po'Boy Fresh back with another video. I'd like to start off by saying thank you to the people that have subscribed to my channel since the last time I posted. I've been trying to start doing weekly uploads of full videos and continue on with doing the occasional beat making shorts and reels over on the Instagram page. My last video attracted a lot more people than I was really expecting. I know 32 isn't exactly a large number of subscribers in YouTube terms, but that's a pretty decent sized room full of people, and that feels pretty good after only doing 2 videos. So I thought I would take the opportunity, since I'm getting ready to move, to go ahead and do a bit of a channel intro, a little bit of background about myself, and my history with sound design and music, which there isn't much there, but that's beside the point. And before I get into any of that though, I'd like to do a quick studio tour. So let's kick on over to the bargain bin studio, as I call it, and I'll explain why I call it that as I show you around. So let's get to it. Okay, so up first we have the turntable, which is an Audio-Technica AT-LP60X. You can pick these up at Walmart for just over $100. It's a decent turntable. It does have a built-in preamp. It sounds pretty good, definitely good enough for sampling off of, you know, old dusty records. It doesn't have a strobe, it's not direct drive, it doesn't have a start-stop button or a pitch fader or any of those fancy things, but it's definitely better than the, you know, all-in-one turntable mechanism in a fancy-looking box for $50 type of things that you would also be able to find at Walmart. So I chose this one as it was the best and most accessible, budget-friendly option for a usable and decent quality turntable for my uses. And next we have the Microkorg. This is the Microkorg 2, and the reason why I chose this synthesizer over other synthesizers is because A, it was inexpensive, and B, it doesn't require all that much programming to get some decent sounds out of it because of the presets. I wanted something that I wasn't going to spend all day tweaking and making noise with. I just want to be able to quickly hit a couple buttons and try out different sounds and see how they sound over top of what I'm already working on. So that's the Microkorg. And next up we have the main event. This is my main desk here with the MPC, the SP404 Mark II, and the mixer that connects everything together. So I went with the MPC One Plus because it's the cheapest of the MPCs. I got the SP404 Mark II first, actually, before I got the MPC, because I wanted to get just a basic sampler without a fancy touchscreen and all of that. And the 404 Mark II has the USB audio in both directions and skip back recording. I was really sold on it. This was my first actual piece of gear. And obviously I warmed up to the idea of the touchscreen MPCs later on and did get an MPC. But I started with the 404, and then the mixer over here is a Behringer Xenix 1003B, I believe is the model number. And I chose this for, once again, its low price point, and the fact that it also has 6 stereo channels and EQs on all the channels, and it has faders instead of little knobs. It fits perfectly within this setup, and it can be run off of a 9-volt battery. Now, it can be a little bit noisy, but not in a way that is negative for the kind of music that I like to make, so I'm not super worried about it. But this is the hub that everything's connected to. The MPC goes into the 404, which goes into the mixer, where one output from the mixer goes out to my speakers, which I'll get to in a second, and the other output goes back into the MPC. So that enables me to use the USB on the 404 to do sampling from my phone or my laptop into the MPC through the mixer. And then next we have the speakers. These are not studio monitors. These are passive entry-level hi-fi speakers that I already had before I got back into beat making. I got these at Best Buy. These are the Polk Audio Signature S15 bookshelf speakers, and they sound okay. And they're being powered by this SMSL A300 amplifier that I found at a thrift store. It was an Amazon return, and it's obviously another thing that I got before I started getting into music, and I just use it to power the speakers. And then finally we have the headphones, which are, of course, the classic Sony MDR 7506. They are a classic. There's a reason why they're still made, and they do sound amazing. So that's the Bargain Bin Studio. The reason why I call it the Bargain Bin Studio, obviously I tried to save money everywhere I could here while still filling out what I feel like is a pretty complete studio. I don't have a lot of analog gear beyond just the mixer. I don't have any outboard compressors or EQs or anything like that, preamps or anything. It's all being printed over USB when I'm recording my beats directly into Reaper, of course. So that's why it's called the Bargain Bin Studio. All right, so now for a little bit more information about me and how I got to this point and why I started this channel. For a very long time now, since I was in my early teens, I've been very interested in sample-based music production, beat making, and stuff like that. My dad actually used to do it on a Boss BR1200 CD Porta Studio, which is not at all designed for beat making. It is actually a very capable device, but also very outdated and definitely not meant for beat making. But that was really my first sort of glimpse into that world of sound and the way that you're able to take a piece of music that already exists in a totally different context, in a completely different genre, and cut it up into these pieces where you disrupt the flow, the natural flow of that original piece, and rearrange it in a way that is rhythmic and interesting, and combining it with drums and a bass line and just turning it into a completely different thing while still keeping the sonic character of the original piece mostly intact. It's always been very interesting to my ears. I love the way that it sounds. But unfortunately, I didn't really have access to any kind of gear or software or anything that could kind of get me to the point of making that kind of music. But I did fool around with whatever little bits of software I could get my hands on. I started really getting into sound design primarily in Caustic, which was unfortunately it's no longer being developed, but it was a mobile app that was meant to emulate a hardware rack of synthesizers and gear, and the workflow in it was fantastic for making electronic music. It did have a sampler, but it was more designed for multi-sampled instruments and things like that, and chopping up samples was a nightmare in there. So I primarily just played around with the different synthesizers and everything, and that goes back to why I chose a microKORG, because I spent so much time in Caustic and other apps like that, and standalone synth apps and everything, just making noise and learning how synthesizers work, that I knew if I got a standard synth that wasn't something like the microKORG with all of its presets, that I would just sit there making noise all day and not actually get anything done. But Caustic is where I started. It was abandoned probably over 10 years ago at this point, and after that I kind of fell off music for quite a while. But then about a year ago I discovered Koala Sampler, and that was sort of my gateway drug back into music production, because the workflow in that app is so perfect. I mean, I've never met such a capable and yet approachable music making app as Koala in my life, and it really jump-started this journey that I'm on now back into beat making. Then back in October of last year, I got the 404 as my first piece of gear. I already went over that in the studio tour, but I just wanted a simple sampler, and that's what it is. So after I got the 404, the next thing I got was the turntable and a couple vinyl records from the vinyl record shelf at Walmart, and I made a couple of beats with some of the samples I was able to get from those records. but I didn't have a huge selection to really choose from, and I still continued to mostly sample from my phone. I'd love to say that at this point I've got this massive collection of vinyl records, but I actually don't. I really don't have that much time throughout my week to really go and dig in the actual crates, especially when I can just use my phone. But it's fine. You can sample from anything. There's no rules. After the turntable, I got the Microkorg, and I had some issues with that because initially I wanted to play the Microkorg along with the patterns I had on the 404, and I discovered that the default volume setting of 127 that the 404 puts on all of your samples is actually way too loud, and it took me a lot longer than I'm willing to admit to realize that that's the reason why the Microkorg sounded so quiet, and that there wasn't anything wrong with the 404 or the Microkorg. And so that was fun, figuring that out and learning how to integrate that into my very minimalist setup at that point. But then after the Microkorg, I finally broke down and bought my first ever MPC. MPC-3 was already released out of the beta stage when I did get it back in February. And along with the MPC, in order to connect everything together, I had to get a mixer. So I got the mixer that I got because it's stereo and it was cheap. So that's kind of my background and how I got to the point that I'm at. And so now I want to talk about this channel, how it started and where I'm thinking it might go. So initially, I started just uploading shorts and also uploading reels on Instagram. And that was really all I was planning on doing with my YouTube channel at all. And then I got a new laptop. I downloaded OBS just to see how it would run, because this is a much more powerful laptop than the one that I had before. Then I started filming and decided to actually just make it out into a full video. And then I decided that maybe this is something that I'll do more frequently, maybe a weekly upload of a new video. I can't promise it's going to stay that way for right now because I am getting ready to move, but that's sort of how the channel came to be. And where I'm hoping to go in the future is to either do tips and tricks or stick to just beat making videos, or alternate back and forth. I'm still pretty new, relatively speaking, to all of this gear, and I don't want to bore anybody to death or give anybody any bad information, but I do learn my way around new stuff pretty quickly. It's the musical side of things that I'm more of a noob at. So maybe I'll do something like that, alternate between beat making videos and tips and tricks videos, but we'll see. But anyway, that's going to be all for this one. Thank you all so much for watching. Those of you that have already subscribed, thank you so much. I know, again, 32 is not a big number in YouTube terms, but it's a big number to me, and it means a lot that you guys went out of your way to let the system know you wanted more content from me and you liked what you saw. Anybody that's new here, you know, follow the trend, I suppose, if you feel like it. If you don't like what you see, then I understand. I'm also new to videography. So anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.